Hello, welcome to Learn English with Technology podcast series. Today, we're going on a deep dive into the psychology behind learning English with technology. You've sent us a ton of material. It looks like podcasts, articles, maybe some research. I'm excited to see what fascinating facts we uncover together. Expert speaker, are you ready to get our brains buzzing?
Absolutely. This is a field that's just exploding right now. What we're learning about how our brains interact with technology is just incredible. I think you're going to be amazed by what we find in these sources.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to explore how smart devices tap into your brain's natural learning processes to help you learn English more effectively. Get this, some studies suggest people can learn up to 50% faster with smart devices.
That's incredible.
I know. Okay, so first up, we're talking about your brain on tech. What's fascinating to me is this idea that using smart devices to learn can actually change the physical structure of your brain. Is that really true?
It is. The brain is incredibly adaptable. Every time you learn something new, you're essentially rewiring your brain, creating new neural pathways and strengthening existing ones. And it turns out that using technology for learning can actually accelerate this process.
So it's not just about convenience. My phone is actually making me smarter.
In a way, yes. One of the key things that smart devices do is create a multi-sensory learning experience. Think about when you're using a language learning app. You're seeing words, hearing them spoken aloud, and interacting with them through quizzes and games. This simultaneous engagement of different senses creates what researchers call a neural symphony in your brain.
A neural symphony, I like that. But how does that symphony actually help me learn English better?
It's all about creating stronger connections in your brain. When multiple areas of your brain are activated at the same time, it reinforces the learning process and makes it easier to remember what you're studying. Think of it like building a bridge. The more connections you have, the stronger and more stable that bridge becomes.
That makes sense. Okay. Next, let's talk about those chemical rewards. You know those satisfying dings and notifications you get when you answer something correctly in a learning app? I have to admit, those make me feel pretty good.
They're designed to. Those little bursts of positive feedback are actually triggering a powerful chemical reaction in your brain. When you get something right, your brain releases dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward.
So it's not just a gimmick. My phone is actually giving me a mini dopamine rush every time I learn something new.
Exactly. And that dopamine rush is what keeps you coming back for more. It creates a positive feedback loop. You learn something, you get rewarded, you feel good, and you want to keep learning. It's a clever way to hack your brain's reward system and make learning more enjoyable.
It makes me wonder if my phone knows me better than I know myself. Which actually leads perfectly into our next topic, personalized learning. We all learn differently. So how can a smart device possibly know what's best for me?
That's where things get really interesting. Your smart device is constantly collecting data about your learning habits. It tracks what you get right, what you struggle with, how quickly you learn new words, and even how often you review material.
So it's like having a tiny spy in my pocket tracking my every move.
Well, maybe not a spy, but definitely a very attentive observer. And all that data it collects is used to create a personalized learning experience just for you. It can adjust the difficulty level, the type of exercises you get, and even when you get reminders to review material.
So my phone is basically my personal learning coach.
You could say that. And here's the really cool part. It uses a technique called spaced repetition, which is based on the science of how our brains form memories. It knows when you're about to forget something and reminds you to review it just in time.
So it's like my phone remembers for me.
Ah!
Talk about taking the pressure off.
Exactly. And that's one of the key advantages of using technology for learning. It takes care of the heavy lifting when it comes to memory management so you can focus on what really matters, learning English.
Okay, so we've talked about how technology can rewire our brains, trigger those feel-good chemicals, and even personalize our learning experience. But learning a language can sometimes feel like a solitary journey. Can technology really help with that? Can it tap into the power of the group, even when we're learning alone?
Absolutely. Even though you might be physically alone while using a learning app, your brain doesn't necessarily experience it that way. There's a fascinating psychological principle called social proof theory, which suggests that we're more likely to do something if we see others doing it successfully.
So seeing other people succeed can actually motivate me to learn.
Exactly. And smart devices tap into this principle in clever ways. Think about leaderboards, streaks, or even just seeing that other people are learning the same material as you. It creates a sense of community and even a bit of healthy competition.
It's like having a virtual study group cheering you on every step of the way.
Exactly. And that social connection can be a powerful motivator. It makes you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, which can help you stay engaged and committed to your learning goals.
That's so true. Okay, we've talked about how smart devices can change our brains, create those feel-good rewards, personalize our learning, and even make us feel more connected to others. But what about those times when learning feels really hard? You know, those moments when you hit a wall and your brain just doesn't want to cooperate.
We all experience those moments of frustration. But here's where technology can really come to the rescue. Smart devices are designed to help you break through those mental blocks in some really fascinating ways.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more. How does my phone know when I'm struggling?
Your smart device is constantly monitoring your cognitive load, which is a fancy way of saying how much information your brain can process at any given time. When you start to struggle, your device picks up on subtle cues like slower response times, more errors, or even how long you hesitate before answering a question.
So it's like my phone can sense my frustration? That's a little bit spooky, but also kind of cool. What happens when it senses I'm reaching my limit?
Instead of pushing you harder, which could lead to discouragement, your smart device will adjust to support you. It might offer helpful hints, break down complex concepts into smaller chunks, or even suggest taking a break.
So it's like my phone is saying, hey, I see you're struggling. Let's take a breather and come back to this later when you're fresh.
Exactly. And those moments of rest and recovery are crucial for learning. When you give your brain a chance to process new information and recharge, you're actually making the learning process more efficient in the long run.
It's like working out at the gym. You wouldn't try to lift weights for hours on end without a break, right? Your muscles need time to recover and grow stronger.
That's a great analogy. And the same principle applies to your brain. Those mental breaks are essential for consolidating new knowledge and building stronger neural connections.
Okay, I'm convinced. From now on, no more guilt trips when I need to step away from my learning app and give my brain a rest. It's all part of the process. But what I find really fascinating is how these devices can help us get into those flow states. You know, those times when learning feels effortless and time just flies by.
Flow states. Those are the holy grail of learning. And you're right, smart devices can play a key role in helping you reach that state of deep engagement and focus.
But those flow states always seem to happen so randomly. Can technology really help me control them?
It can't control them entirely, but it can definitely make them more likely to occur. Remember how we talked about finding that sweet spot where the challenge level is just right? Not too easy, not too hard. Well, smart devices are constantly monitoring your performance and adjusting the difficulty level to keep you in that optimal flow zone.
It's like my phone is a flow state DJ, constantly mixing the perfect learning track to keep me in the groove.
I love that analogy. And the more you use the app, the better it gets at knowing how to create those flow states for you. It's like having a personalized flow state recipe that gets refined over time. But achieving flow state isn't just about the right level of challenge, it's also about managing distractions and maintaining focus.
That's so true. I know I'm guilty of getting sidetracked by social media or emails when I'm trying to learn.
And this is another area where smart devices can be incredibly helpful. Many learning apps are designed to be used offline so you can escape those digital distractions and create a dedicated space for learning.
That makes so much sense. It's like creating a mental sanctuary where you can fully immerse yourself in the learning process.
Exactly. And even when you are online, some apps offer features like focus mode that block distractions and help you stay on track.
Okay, I'm loving all these brain hacks. So my phone is helping me build good habits, find those flow states, and even fight distractions. Is there anything else it could do to make me a super learner?
Well, one area where smart devices are really excelling is in the use of what's called gamification in learning apps. Think about those streaks you get for completing lessons every day, or those badges you earn for reaching certain milestones.
I have to admit, those little rewards do motivate me to keep going.
And that's exactly the point. Our brains are hardwired to respond to games. Think about the feeling you get when you level up in a video game or earn a special reward. Those are powerful motivators, and smart devices are using those same principles to make learning more engaging and rewarding.
It's not just about learning, it's about having fun while you learn.
Exactly, and that's one of the key secrets to long-term learning success. When you enjoy the process, you're more likely to stick with it and reach your goals.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's so much more to explore. What else can our listeners look forward to in part 2 of our deep dive.
We'll be delving deeper into the fascinating world of memory. We'll talk about how smart devices can help you form stronger, more lasting memories, and how they can even help you relearn information more quickly if you happen to forget something. It's all about leveraging the latest in memory research to make you a more efficient and effective learner.
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to learn more. We'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into the psychology behind learning English with technology.
Welcome back. One of the things that never ceases to amaze me is how much our understanding of memory has evolved. We used to think of it as this static storage space, but now we know it's so much more dynamic and intricate.
It really is. And you mentioned last time that smart devices are playing a key role in this new understanding. They're not just about memorizing facts anymore, right?
Right. It's about how we form, retain, and even reshape memories. Think of your device as a personal memory coach, constantly working behind the scenes to help you build stronger, more resilient memories.
Okay, I like where this is going. Tell me more about how my phone can become my memory guru.
Well, one of the key techniques it uses is something called spaced repetition. Remember how we talked about the forgetting curve, that natural tendency to forget things over time? Your device actually calculates the optimal intervals to remind you of information just before you're likely to forget it.
So it's like my phone is playing a game of mental keep away with my memories, making sure they don't slip away.
That's a great way to put it. And it's incredibly effective. Studies have shown that spaced repetition can dramatically increase long-term retention.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like those flashcard apps that keep popping up words I've struggled with before. It can be annoying at the time, but I guess it's actually helping those words stick in my brain.
Exactly. And another powerful tool is how these devices tap into the power of context. You're much more likely to remember something if you can connect it to a specific place, time, or even emotion.
Context. Can you give me an example of how that works?
Imagine you're learning vocabulary related to travel. Instead of just showing you a list of words, your app might show you images of famous landmarks, play sounds of bustling airports, or even have you engage in a virtual travel game.
So it's not just about the words themselves, it's about creating a whole experience around them.
Precisely. All these elements work together to create a richer, more memorable learning experience. Your brain loves making connections, and these devices are masters at helping you forge those connections.
And this is making me realize just how much more effective learning with technology can be compared to, say, just reading a textbook. But what about those times when I just can't seem to remember something no matter how hard I try?
Well, even the most sophisticated learning app can't completely eliminate forgetting. It's a natural part of how our brains work. But here's the good news. Even when you forget something, your device can actually help you relearn it faster and more effectively.
Wait, really? So even my mistakes can be turned into learning opportunities?
Absolutely. In fact, mistakes are essential for learning. When you get something wrong, your device doesn't just mark it as incorrect. It uses that mistake as valuable data to adjust your learning path and help you solidify your understanding. It might revisit that concept later, present it in a different way, or offer you extra practice.
So it's like my phone is saying, okay, we need to work on this a little bit more,
Right.
and then it tailors the lessons accordingly.
Exactly. It's like having a personal tutor who is constantly analyzing your progress and making sure you're on the right track.
That's pretty amazing. Okay, we've talked a lot about the science behind learning, but let's shift gears for a bit and talk about something a little more down to earth: habits. We all know that consistency is key to learning anything new, but it's also one of the hardest things to maintain. Can technology really help us build those all-important learning habits?
You bet. Your smart device is actually a master habit builder, and it uses a variety of psychological techniques to help you establish and maintain those daily learning routines.
For example, I'm all ears.
Well, think about those notifications you get from your learning app. They're not just random reminders, they're strategically timed to coincide with your personal peak moments for habit formation.
So like if I'm someone who always checks my phone first thing in the morning, my app will send me a notification right then to remind me to do my language lesson.
Exactly. It's all about creating those trigger action reward loops that are the foundation of habit formation. The notification is the trigger, the learning session is the action, and the feeling of accomplishment, or even just the fun of the activity, is the reward.
I see. So it's kind of like my phone is hijacking my existing habits and turning them into learning opportunities.
Yeah.
That's pretty sneaky, but I guess if it works, I'm not complaining.
It's all in the service of helping you achieve your learning goals. But it's not just about notifications, it's also about what we call micro-commitment architecture.
Micro-commitment architecture. That sounds a bit intimidating. What exactly is that?
It's actually a very simple but powerful concept. Instead of asking you to commit to a long study session, which can feel daunting, your app breaks down the learning into tiny bite-sized chunks. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. These micro-commitments feel much more manageable and less overwhelming, so you're more likely to get started.
It's like that saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But in this case, it's more like the journey of mastering English begins with a 5-minute lesson.
Precisely. And before you know it, those 5-minute lessons can add up to significant progress. The key is to make it so easy to get started that you can't say no.
I love that. Okay, so my phone is sending me perfectly timed notifications, breaking down my learning into bite-sized chunks, and basically tricking me into building good habits. What else can it do to make me a super learner? You mentioned flow state earlier, but is there anything else?
Well, one area where technology is really shining is in helping us understand and utilize something called flow state. Those moments when you're so completely absorbed in what you're doing that time seems to disappear.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. Those are the best learning moments, but they seem to happen so rarely. Can technology really help us tap into those magical flow states more often?
It can't guarantee them, but it can certainly increase the likelihood. Remember how we talked about finding that sweet spot where the challenge is just right? Not too easy, not too hard? Well, your smart device is constantly monitoring your performance and adjusting the difficulty level to keep you right in that optimal flow zone.
So it's like my phone is my personal flow state DJ, constantly remixing the learning experience to keep me in the groove.
Exactly. And the more you use the app, the better it becomes at anticipating your needs and keeping you in that sweet spot of flow. It's a personalized flow state recipe that evolves over time. But achieving flow state isn't just about finding the right level of challenge, it's also about managing distractions and maintaining focus. And as we touched on earlier, this is another area where smart devices can be incredibly helpful.
You mentioned offline mode before, but are there any other ways my phone can help me stay focused?
Absolutely. Many apps incorporate what we call gamification. Think about things like streaks, badges, points, or even virtual rewards.
You know, I have to admit, I get a little thrill every time I see my streak counter go up.
Yeah.
Is that really what they're designed to do?
You bet. Our brains are wired to respond to games. They tap into our innate desire for challenge, achievement, and even a little bit of friendly competition.
So learning becomes a game. That sounds way more fun than my old textbooks.
Exactly. And it's not just about extrinsic motivation, like winning or beating others. There's also intrinsic motivation, which comes from the joy of learning itself. And smart devices can help cultivate that as well.
Okay, I get the extrinsic part, but how can a phone make learning more inherently enjoyable?
Well, for one thing, it can offer a much wider variety of learning activities than traditional methods. Instead of just reading textbooks and doing grammar exercises, you can play games, watch videos, listen to podcasts, and even connect with other learners from around the world.
That's so true. It's like having a whole world of learning experiences at my fingertips.
Exactly. And the more you enjoy the learning process, the more likely you are to stick with it and make real progress. But with so many choices, it can sometimes feel overwhelming.
I was just thinking that. How do I know where to start or which app is right for me? There are so many options out there.
That's a great point. And this is where the personalization aspect we discussed earlier comes back into play. Your smart device is constantly learning about your preferences, strengths, and weaknesses, and tailoring the learning experience to your individual needs and interests.
So it's like having a personal learning concierge guiding me through the vast world of language learning and making sure I'm always engaged and motivated.
Precisely. And the more you use the app, the better it becomes at knowing what you like and what you need. It's a truly personalized learning journey.
This is all so fascinating. It feels like we're really getting a glimpse into the future of education. But before we get too carried away, I want to bring us back to something we talked about earlier: attention. We live in a world of constant distractions, and it can be so hard to stay focused, especially when you're trying to learn something new. Can technology really help us win this battle for our attention?
It can, and this is one of the most exciting frontiers in learning science and technology. Our devices are becoming increasingly sophisticated in how they understand and manage our attention.
This is mind-blowing. How can my phone possibly know when my mind is starting to wander?
It's all about tracking subtle cues. Smart devices can now analyze things like your eye movements, your typing speed, and even how often you switch between apps.
Wow, it's like my phone has ESP. But what happens when it senses I'm losing focus?
It will gently nudge you back on track. It might adjust the difficulty level of the task, offer you a quick break, or suggest switching to a different activity. It's all about keeping you in that flow zone where learning feels effortless and distractions fade away.
It's like my phone is becoming my personal attention bodyguard, protecting me from those pesky distractions that are always trying to steal my focus.
That's a great way to put it. And as technology continues to evolve, we can expect even more sophisticated attention management tools that will help us learn more effectively and efficiently than ever before.
Wow, I am so excited about what the future holds for learning with technology. This has been an incredible deep dive so far, and I can't wait to explore even more in our next segment. What other fascinating insights can we look forward to in part 3?
Next, we'll uncover the power of self-paced learning and explore the impact of learning analytics on our motivation. Plus, we'll delve into something called cognitive interface adaptation, which is all about how our brains create mental shortcuts when we use well-designed apps.
That sounds fascinating. I can't wait to learn more. We'll be back soon with part 3 of our deep dive into the psychology behind learning English with technology. Welcome back to our deep dive. We've been talking about all these amazing ways technology can boost our learning, but it makes me wonder, is there a downside? Can we become too reliant on our devices?
That's a great question and one that researchers are exploring right now. It's all about finding that balance. Technology should enhance our learning, not replace those essential skills like critical thinking and problem solving.
So it's like our devices can be amazing tools, but we still need to be the ones holding the hammer, so to speak.
Exactly. Think of it as a partnership. Your device provides the support and guidance, but you're the architect of your own learning journey.
I like that. Okay, last time we were about to dive into self-paced learning. I'm really intrigued by this idea that learning at my own speed is actually better for my brain.
It is. It's about tapping into your brain's natural rhythm. When you control the pace, you're more likely to reach those aha moments, those bursts of insight when everything clicks into place.
It's like those times when I'm struggling with a grammar concept and then suddenly, boom, it all makes sense. Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. And those moments are pure gold for your brain. They signal that your neural networks are firing on all cylinders, forging strong connections.
Okay, but let's be honest. Learning isn't always a walk in the park. There are times when it feels like a mental marathon. Can self-pacing really help with that?
It can. Think about those times when you felt overwhelmed by a learning task. Maybe you tried to cram too much information or felt pressured to keep up with a fast-paced lesson. That's when stress kicks in and learning becomes a struggle.
Oh, I know that feeling all too well. But how can self-pacing make a difference?
It's about giving your brain permission to take a breather, to process information at its own speed. Remember, your smart device is there to support you, not to dictate the pace.
It's like having a personal trainer for my brain, gently encouraging me to push my limits, but also knowing when to ease up.
Exactly. And here's the thing, those moments of pause, those times when you choose to slow down and really absorb a concept, they're not wasted time. They're actually essential for building stronger, more lasting memories.
So it's not about racing to the finish line. It's about savoring the journey.
Precisely. Learning should be an adventure, not a chore.
Okay, so my phone is my brain's personal trainer, my pace setter, and my cheerleader all rolled into one. But let's talk about another aspect of learning that can sometimes feel a bit daunting. All those charts, graphs, and statistics that track our progress. Are they really necessary?
They can be incredibly helpful. Those visuals aren't just about keeping score, they actually tap into a powerful psychological principle called progress visualization.
Okay, tell me more about this progress visualization thing.
It's quite simple, really. Our brains love to see progress, to know that we're moving forward, and when we can visually track that progress, it triggers a sense of accomplishment and motivates us to keep going.
So it's like those fitness trackers that show you how many steps you've taken or how many calories you've burned. Seeing those numbers go up makes you want to keep moving.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to learning. Those charts and graphs aren't just data points, they're visual reminders of how far you've come and how much you've achieved.
I never thought of it that way. It's like those before and after pictures for weight loss. Seeing the transformation is incredibly motivating.
That's a great analogy. And it's not just about the big picture progress, it's also about those small wins along the way. Each time you master a new grammar rule or expand your vocabulary, your app celebrates those achievements with you, reinforcing those positive feelings and keeping you engaged.
It's like a constant stream of mini celebrations. No wonder those learning apps can be so addictive.
And that's not a bad thing. We want learning to feel rewarding and enjoyable. That's how we build those all-important habits and stay motivated for the long haul.
This has been an incredible conversation, expert speaker. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of how technology can empower us as learners.
Me too. It's exciting to see how much we're learning about the brain and how these devices can help us unlock our full learning potential.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just this. Embrace the power of technology, but remember, you are the ultimate guide on your learning journey. Set your goals, find the tools that resonate with you, and never stop exploring the amazing world of language.
That's a great message to end on. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the psychology of learning English with technology. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and let us know what you learned in the comments. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.